Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and this one honestly is one that I don't expect to get a lot of traction, but it's one that really should, because after a tragedy like Parkland or Sandy Hook or the Colorado STEM School, we get media pundits that devote hours upon hours to the story, and it's all just a demand for one extreme or the other. When the story broke about the STEM school, we heard people either saying that we just need virtually exponential expansion of mental health, including everything that entails, or universally disarming everyone, and neither one of those is the answer. You'll recall I did have a video where I talked about the fact that the STEM shooters, or one of the two shooters at the STEM school, the father was a violent, multi-time deported illegal alien. Now, had this person been kept out of the country after their first deportation, one, the violence he committed would have been lessened, and the example that sets would have been dramatically lessened. But the policy that allowed them back in multiple times just exacerbated the situation. And this is one where this story rightly points out there is a need for caution when looking at these situations. We know that if you pass a law, only the law abiding will be affected by it until someone breaks that law when they're affected by the punishment aspect. Murder is already illegal. Rape is already illegal. Speeding is already illegal. Theft is already illegal. Yet people do those things, and when they are caught and convicted, they face the punishment side of the law. This story, however, is a warning that basically says it's a double-edged sword when you talk about mental health reform. You see, when you look at Parkland, the shooter there was on medication for attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. He had been examined more than once by mental health professionals. Ultimately, that system failed. Teachers were basically hamstrung. Now, I understand and I agree, teachers are not mental health experts by any sense of the word. Even those who teach psychology are not practicing psychologists or psychiatrists. But having taught myself and just looking at my students, I could tell when one of them was facing something difficult, when one of them was going through something that was very new in their lives, when there was a change. And some of the times I was able to talk to my students and find out, hey, what's going on? Other times I was not, and I simply let someone know that, hey, there's something going on. Obviously, the student's changed. You can tell when a student, either when you have someone who's very quiet and all of a sudden they are one of the most verbose and outgoing people that you have in your class, something's going on. Now, in some cases, it can be a good change that a negative part of their life has been answered and taken care of or removed, or it could be that they have turned to drugs to handle their issues. When you have someone who's normally very outgoing and friends with everyone and they withdraw into themselves, something has changed in their lives. And we need to be aware of it, but we also need to be aware of the fact that as teachers, as private citizens, we are not mental health experts. We need to listen to the mental health experts. This story here, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, or CCHR, is basically warning against psychotropic drug usage. And I can tell you, I've seen what happens when someone is put on psychotropics and what happens when they're coming down. Having worked as a detention officer for my county, I've witnessed withdrawal from every type of chemical substance that you could possibly think of. They've come in and had to come down off of them, and they crash hard. Generally, they are kept either in isolation or in a medical facility until they are completely off, and then they can be evaluated by a professional. But when it comes to a student, I'm reminded of my own time in elementary school in the mid 1980s. I, like virtually every student at the time, was diagnosed with ADD. My parents, at the recommendation of a doctor, had me on Ritalin, and I turned into a zombie. I was the case of that outgoing friends with everyone student who became so introverted that literally I just existed day to day, and that was it. My parents talked to our family physician and then another expert in the field, and I was removed from those drugs by order of a physician, as it says here at the top right. No one should stop taking psychiatric drugs without doctor supervision. We had that, two of them. My doctor then talked to me, and others talked to me, and it was found that what I believe is a lot of the case in children, I wasn't being challenged. So I was offered a chance to do different things in school that challenged me mentally and in some cases physically, and my behavior, my acting out no longer happened. When I got to high school, I was the troublemaker until my teachers started realizing he's three chapters ahead. He's already done all the work. Let's challenge him a little bit. And that worked. Now, I'm not a professional. I am not a mental health, I'm not a health professional of any kind. I'm not going to say that will work for everyone. It worked for me. But what happened is we listened to professionals. We sought out professionals and we listened to them. They were very involved in seeing what the course of action should be. And in my case, it was Ritalin is killing his spirit. And it was. I didn't like how it felt. And that changed. But now we have just such a wide chasm of everything needs a prescription to handle it. Everything is diagnosed as mania or bipolar or depression or this or that or the other. And a lot of it is self diagnosed, which is extremely dangerous. Uh, just the sheer volume of information available at the touch of a keyboard. And people think that, well, this has got to be it. I purposefully avoid WebMD and other places like that. I talk to my doctor when I have any kind of symptom. About the only time I don't is when I know exactly what caused the symptoms. If I get an abrasion, I know it was me bumping into something, or if I get a cut and I know it was me when I was working with a hickory tree, I treat with antibiotic, a triple antibiotic ointment, and then if it gets worse, I go to my doctor. But I rigorously and religiously avoid any type of self-diagnosis just because I know I'm not a professional. I'm not going to know enough to do that. But we have so many people, predominantly those who have been given a platform on the mainstream media, that feel reading and researching on the internet with publicly available things that may or may not be right makes them an expert on an issue. And then we get the other side of that, where those people who are saying we need to listen to the mental health experts are decried as either gun nuts or not caring or trying to take advantage of a situation, and none of that is true. I believe there is a mental health problem, and I believe probably half of it is the degradation of the traditional family unit. When children are reared with parents who are either working 80 hours a week and don't care about what happens at the home, single parent families, or aunts and uncles, grandparents, or fosters raising them, that changes how that child's life will go. And there are some who have come out of it and done amazingly well, and I cheer them on. But the problem is that we have a symptom we're not looking at. And part of it is the traditional family, I believe, because when you have that traditional nuclear family, and that can be grandparents raising a child, that can be adoptive parents raising a child, or the parents, it can even happen in a single parent home where the single parent realizes I need to be involved and I need to raise my children. When you have that, children typically don't have the same percentage of risk of acting out in horrible ways. But we have an epidemic that, unfortunately, DC doesn't seem willing to even address other than talking points. Now, I know I've said a lot in this. My main premise for this was I want you to read the article. I've read it. There's things in here I don't understand. There's things in here I do understand. And every point on the graph in between. But the main topic of this is we're not listening to the experts. We're not listening to the doctors that this uh, commission has talked to. We're not looking at all points about an issue, and we need to. And we need to stop listening to politicians and journalists and start listening to medical professionals. And these medical professionals are telling us in many cases we're over medicating people who don't need it. In some cases, we are under medicating. In other cases, there needs to be day to day interaction with a professional, and there's all over the place for every other thing that needs to be out there, but we need to listen to them. Until we do, unfortunately, we're going to have consequences of not doing so, and we're just going to see the same things play out in the media until we get a change where we say, no, this is something where I need to go to the recognized psychology and psychiatry experts, and I want to listen to them. Let me know what you think. Just remember, keep it civil in the comments, because we don't learn from argument, we learn from debate. If you are a mental health professional, or you know one and would like to, and would tag them or share this with them, I'd love to see what their response is to this, because in my mind, this is, like I said, it's an issue that I'm not an expert on, but it's one where I see the experts not being involved to the level they should be. But that's a conversation for another time. Please remember to like and share this video, as well as to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you're among the first to know of all content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful day.